Yeah, well, I mean, sex trafficking is a very, if you've heard anything about it, it's kind of a very foreign, scary topic, and there's some thoughts that people have about what trafficking is that's not really true. And so, you know, there are hints of truth in it. For example, a lot of people have seen Hollywood kind of create this idea of trafficking in the sense that, like, people are just captured against their will, kidnapped, and then taken to a foreign country or something like that. But there are so many different ways that it happens, and specifically in Latin America, what we saw was that a lot of the girls were being coerced by pimps along the way while they're traveling up to the United States, for example, for kind of the American dream. But even beyond that, and what we really speak about in these kind of screenings and events is that the deepest roots of trafficking come back down to abuse. Abuse within the home, you know, a girl who has been abused by her father, for example, or a trusted authority figure of any kind in her life as a child is much, much more likely to fall into the hands of a pimp and be trafficked. And so we talk about those kinds of things as the roots of trafficking. And those things are things that we can address within our communities. You know, we don't have to go fighting as an abolitionist or trying to create legislation or do something really massive on a worldwide scale. We can do things in our own families, in our own communities, to fight trafficking in a way, in creating safe communities and safe environments that don't have abuse.
Yeah, that's good. Have you done any research or investigation in more of our local area in Portland?
Yeah, Portland, there's been a lot of talk about Portland being kind of the #1 or 2 worst trafficking cities in the United States. And that's per capita. We are a very small city, but the big issue is that there's a lot of homeless youth and a lot of child prostitution. And in the United States, child prostitution is considered trafficking because if they're under 18, then they're more of a victim, you know. And so, yeah, Portland has a really big problem. But again, it comes back down to that issue of having a neglectful childhood or being abused in the past. They're so much more likely. On top of that, in Portland, what I see that's really exciting is that there's a community, a network of people from churches and the government and different organizations sort of coming together to fight the issue in a really well-informed way. And when we finished up Volviendo, I came to Portland, which is where I grew up, and just sort of saw this happening. And so it's been a great place to let sort of a grassroots movement of education on abuse sort of start to flourish. And so it's really exciting to see people grab onto this and run with it in Portland.
Excellent. Preventative is probably the best cure, which is keeping families together.
Yeah, exactly. It's exactly the point. I mean, prevention is often considered and is in some respects very much just getting people aware of the issue and helping immigrants to understand not to be picked up by traffickers, for example. But a real deep kind of prevention is a prevention where you cut it out at the root and you start to address unsafe communities and create then safe communities that would eventually prevent trafficking from even happening in that community. So yeah, that's a real kind of comprehensive, very deep solution, I think, is prevention. But when we create those safe communities and we David's off. But when we create those safe communities, we're not only creating those communities for prevention, but we're also creating those communities so that people so that those communities can have a good aftercare model as well. I mean, a survivor of trafficking that comes off the streets can't just go into an unsafe community. She or he needs that wraparound care of people that are informed, educated, and are not abusing each other, not abusive people. And so, yeah, community model of healing seems to be a really comprehensive aftercare and prevention model. And I mean, we're getting into a lot of detail about this issue, but we found it to be that there's a real widespread sort of understanding and awareness that there's a problem, but what the solution is still up in the air, kind of still up for grabs. And we kind of realize that it's very much community-based. So. Okay.
Any advice you could give to the McMinnville, Yamhill County area?
One thing that I want to say to McMinnville, Yamhill area, I'll try that again. One thing that I think is important for McMinnville to understand is that wherever abuse exists, trafficking can exist. No community is free of abuse. No community is free of sexual exploitation in one way or another. And it really just takes, a bad situation for a trafficked victim to end up getting into the circuit and start to be trafficked. And again, trafficking is one of the results of a key problem, which is abuse within the home.
Yeah.
So we are not far from the problem.
Okay. Any last thoughts?
I'd love for everybody to visit volviendo.org, and also our partner organization called Mending the Soul. You can see them at mendingthesoul.org. They have an amazing curriculum for not only survivors of trafficking, but for pastors, leaders in the community, the general layperson, on the nature of abuse, the effects of that abuse, and how to heal from it. And so visit those websites, and also, go to volviendo.org and sign up on our email list, and you can kind of follow us and hopefully watch the film. Volviendo is also on Netflix, so if you just type in VOLV, it'll probably come up, and you'll see it there.
Okay. Well, thank you for your time.
Sure.
Okay, and I encourage you to stay tuned and watch some of the highlights of this event tonight. And as he said, go to his website, get some information, and be part of the helping your community.